The following podcast is sponsored by Structure Tech.
Ruben, where can everybody find your blog?
StructureTech.com. That's it. Yeah. We got a new domain name. StructureTech.com.
Yes.
Click on blog.
So the domain name went on a diet. It lost
the number one, but we just have a new domain name that we can direct people to.
Welcome, everybody, to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation. My name is Bill Ulrich, alongside Tessa Murray and
Hi.
Ruben Saltzman.
Hello.
And Ruben has decided to put us on Facebook Live for this episode of the podcast. And joining the fun, we have Neil Saltzman, Ruben's father.
Hi, guys.
And Larry back there.
Producer Larry.
Yeah, producer Larry. Extraordinaire. We use extraordinaire behind lots of people, like Tessa's building science extraordinaire. Ruben is home inspector extraordinaire. Neil, what are you extraordinaire at?
Right now, being a grandpa.
Gotcha.
I like that.
All right, very good.
Grandpa
Larry?
Neil Extraordinaire.
Yes.
All right, so we're just going to spend some time here doing, we'd like to do a live Q&A for anybody who's online and has home inspection questions or other questions. But Ruben, do we have anything
We have
teed
good
up
life
here?
advice.
If you say we're not going to limit it to home inspections, I mean, we could start out with George's question right away. I had posted this on our Facebook page earlier, and George, one of the inspectors on our team, has been on the podcast. He comes in right away with the question. This is one for producer Larry. Where'd you get the toilet bowl coffee cup? We'll start with that. No idea. Okay. All right. We're off to a great start. Excellent. All right. I do have a real question here. This one comes from Daniel Felt, another person we've had as a guest on the show of Cura Home Maintenance. And he said he's got a lot of clients who are asking him what to do about ice dams this time of year. And I mean, his standard answer is you hire a professional to steam them off. But people don't want to pay that kind of money. I mean, it is hideously expensive to hire a professional to steam off your ice dam. So what else can you do? And people say, is it really effective to pull snow off the edge of the roof? And is that going to prevent ice dams from forming and leaks from happening? Tessa, why don't you take this one? What do you got to say?
Check out Ruben's blog.
All right, next question.
That's a great suggestion. But Ruben, where can everybody find your blog?
StructureTech.com. That's it. Yeah. We got a new domain name. StructureTech.com.
Yes.
Click on blog.
So the domain name went on a diet. It lost
The number one. Yeah, we
And
still
then-
own that. That's really where the website is, but we just have a new domain name that we can direct people to.
All right,
Very
good. I'm
exciting.
glad we got that
Yeah.
out of the way. Okay,
Yeah,
Tess.
thank
all right.
you.
Well, if you have a house where you can get into the attic, the key is to stop the heat from getting from the house into the attic. Because once that heat from the house gets into the attic, it's going to warm up the roof, which is going to melt the snow, which is going to cause the ice dam. So to stop the heat, you need to find all these little holes in the floor of the attic, between the house and the attic space where that warm air can rise and get into the attic. They're called attic bypasses, and it's a pretty involved process. If you don't know what you're doing, I would recommend hiring a good insulation contractor to help you do this air sealing work. But basically, you have to move all the insulation out of the way, find these little holes, seal them up, spray foam, caulking, and then add more insulation. And once you've done that, hopefully that can stop a lot of that heat from getting into the attic and making it warm.
But the short-term question here is it going to help to remove snow from your roof? Is this going to help prevent leaks?
No, that's just going to prevent ice dams from forming in the first place. But if you already have ice dams on your house, is that the question? What do you do when you have
let's say
them?
you don't have an ice dam and you just don't want to have to pay somebody to come out and steam it off. Is there value in pulling snow off your roof?
I've
Yes.
heard that there is, yes. I personally have not had to do that, but I've heard from people who have that it is a good thing.
Yeah,
It's the most
you-
cost-effective
That is
solution.
Yeah.
definitely a solution.
Yeah.
Quick story. When my daddy was alive, he and I went around knocking on doors, asking people if they wanted their ice dams taken care of. And we got up there with a hatchet
Nice.
and an axe.
Really?
Oh, yeah, back in the day, we'd take an axe and hatchet and a saw, and we'd cut through the
my
ice.
gosh.
Yes.
How many roofs did you
leave
puncture
your
holes
business
in?
card for the roof repair?
It was my
No.
dad. It was my
They
daddy.
give a false name and they get paid in cash.
Oh my
yeah, give me
gosh.
cash. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Never.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so crazy.
I
Well,
know.
yeah. And then to that point, you can do heat cables too if you don't want to rake your roof. And we had a great podcast with Steve Cool talking about heat cables and what kind of heat cable you should invest in. But self-regulating, that's what they're called. Yeah.
But wait a second. Weren't the heat cables not meant to melt the ice off the roof. They're meant to melt a pathway so the water can run into the gutter and then drain out of the gutter and away from your house.
That's exactly it. Yeah, you don't put heat cables on when you have ice dams. You put them
Right.
on earlier on in the year.
Going to be a summer project.
Yeah.
So if you already have big ice dams on your house, the only solution is steam them off. But
Yeah.
if you
But if-
yeah.
Pulling snow helps.
Pulling
Yeah,
stone
pulling
definitely
stone.
helps. And, people have asked me, how much should I remove? And usually it's good enough to just do like the first 3 feet or so and then let the sun get down to the shingles. The sun heats up the shingles. You don't have ice accumulating there because it stays warm enough and it'll just run off. But when you have some really extreme temperature swings and you have some really heavy snow loads, sometimes it's not enough to do that. Sometimes you're going to have another ice dam form right where you stop raking the snow. So,
Sure.
the best answer is remove all of the snow from the roof. I mean, you guys laugh, but I'm serious. I mean, this is really it. I've seen a couple of years where people had secondary ice dams forming where they stopped raking.
Wow.
So it's not a fail-safe. And if Steve Cool were on here, he'd be going, heck yes. I mean,
Do you remember when you helped me
one.
bring the snowblower up on top of the roof?
Oh, we've got pictures. We've got pictures. Absolutely.
Oh.
Maybe we could put that one on this when we post
what
it live.
not to do.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I posted that on our Facebook page. You should have seen some of the comments people had. They're like, "Who's this idiot?" Like, yeah, the things people do. My. Yep. But it was a single stage snowblower, to be fair.
True. Right. It wasn't the
It
dual
wasn't
stage.
Right. It was
It
a
didn't
little
damage
one.
the shingles?
It was a little snow
Did
pup.
It was
No?
just a little snow pup.
Bright idea
Just a
was
pup.
this?
Of course it was mine.
He had me bring it over. I didn't volunteer to bring my snowblower over to bring it on his roof.
But you did volunteer to
I said I'll help ya.
to accompany him on
It's
the
my
roof.
dad. Of course. What would you do?
Don't we love living in
They
the
don't
nest?
do
I'm
that.
not going
Dad.
on the roof with a snowblower with my dad, even just because he's my dad. I'm busy that day, man. I'm sorry.
No, it was fun. I got some good photos.
All right. Do we have another question here?
Another question is, I'd like to know how you guys inspect roofs during the winter. And this is coming from Tennessee. He said, we don't get a lot of snow here in Tennessee. This is from Sam Morris. And that's worthy of an episode all on its own.
Yeah.
We ought to do a podcast on inspecting roofs during the winter and air conditioners and all that other stuff that's covered in snow.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I have strong opinions about this. I could give Sam what I think.
All right.
I don't think you can inspect a roof in the wintertime when it's snow covered.
Yeah.
I mean, you can inspect
agree.
a spot on the roof and try to extrapolate,
Yeah.
but that's exactly what you're doing. There is no peace of mind to
Yeah.
a roof inspection when there's a foot of
Yeah.
snow covering
Agreed.
95% of it.
Yeah.
What do y'all think?
I'm 100% with you. I don't feel confident assessing a roof when it's 99%, 90%, 80%, whatever covered in snow.
Gotcha. I agree.
Yeah.
And then we take a little broom up there and brush some away to try and get a sense.
I
But when it's
try,
even covered with ice,
but
and there's usually ice
Yeah.
underneath that
Yeah, you
layer
can't
of
even
snow,
see.
and then you're trying to get an assessment. It doesn't
yeah,
work well at all.
So if you're buying a house during the winter and it's snow covered, what are you going to do?
It's a risk.
it is.
Just looking at the clock here, it's time to take a quick break. You've been listening to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation. We are live, so you're going to watch me take a sip of water, I guess. Is that what happens on a
we
break?
take 10-second breaks.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, Bill Ulrich here with Structure Talk. Do you live in a home that has a homeowners association attached to it? Here's an interesting nugget. In 2019, Minnesota passed a law that requires all HOAs have a preventive maintenance plan in place. What's that, you say? I know, right? And what's necessary is clear as mud. At Structure Tech, we put together an affordable solution to help HOAs meet this obligation. If your association isn't talking about this, they should be. Check out how we can help at structuretech1.com. We've been working closely with management companies all year to come up with a win-win-win to meet this new requirement. Let us know if we can help at structuretech.com.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation. My name is Bill Ulrich, alongside Tessa Murray, Building Science Extraordinaire, Ruben Saltzman, Home Inspection Extraordinaire, Neil Saltzman, Home Inspection Extraordinaire, partially retired.
Neil,
home
Grandpa.
inspector.
Grandpa
And
extraordinaire.
Grandpa.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can
And
go
we're all
with
here. And Larry's producer extraordinaire is back in the corner. So we're going to dive back into another question here. We're doing a live session on Facebook. So what do you got?
All right, this
Tee us up.
one comes from Tennessee too, I think. This comes from Dusty Jameson. It says Tennessee recently had a bill proposed to give the option for people to hire unlicensed inspectors, along with many other licensed professionals, to perform services as long as they sign a consent letter. The unlicensed inspector can perform the service with zero liability. What's your thought about a bill like that? You shared the link with us. Anybody
So-
want to talk
What
about
kind of
this?
repairs or services are you talking about? Like,
It's providing home inspections. You're an unlicensed home inspector and you get some liability waiver.
Yeah.
Sign me up, right? Like I'll do home inspections and give you my best opinion if I have no liability, right? Like as a home inspector.
Now,
is
how
it
is
just
that?
talking about home inspections, or is it talking about servicing and repair work?
This question, well, I can read it again. It said they had a bill proposed to give the option for people to hire unlicensed inspectors, along with many other licensed professionals. Maybe normally licensed professionals. Maybe what's implied here is that you can hire a bunch of people who aren't licensed to do a bunch of different things. I'm assuming that's kind of what's implied here. And you just sign a waiver saying, I know you're unlicensed and I don't care. I want to hire you anyways. I think that's what the question is.
Oh, okay. Well, I still think you can be unlicensed and do a great job. I mean, we're unlicensed in our state, and that doesn't really mean that we do a bad job.
Now, let me flip it. If we were licensed and we took the time to go through the licensing process and we turn in all our paperwork, let's just say it's radon. We do a ridiculous amount of work for radon. And I mean, us home inspectors at Structure Tech, we don't even do radon testing anymore because all the hoops we got to jump through for radon. So we got a handful of people who just do that. It's a lot. And we had to significantly increase our radon testing fees because of this. What if there were a bill introduced in Minnesota now where people could use unlicensed radon people and use them to do radon testing? All they need to do is sign off on something saying, I understand they're not licensed.
It would be
How would we
frustrating.
feel about that?
That would be very frustrating.
Well, as a licensed person,
Yeah.
I would be crying foul.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
That's a bunch of garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dusty, I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got to the meat of that question.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
disagree with unbalanced playing fields.
Yeah.
But just because you're licensed doesn't mean you're anything
Right.
extra special. Just means you went through the process of getting licensed.
Yep, exactly. And whenever licensing does come here to Minnesota, and it will eventually, I mean, it's coming throughout the whole country. What I like to say, and I'm quoting somebody else who said this, someone much smarter than me, his eloquent way of putting it was it becomes a well-publicized portal through which anybody can step through to become a home inspector. And it gives the perception that you've now leveled the playing field and that we all do the same thing. But look at any licensed profession. I mean, look at any licensed contractor. Does everybody do the same job because they're licensed?
No.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But all of a sudden, that's kind of the public perception. So
Sure.
that's part of the reason that I'm not a fan of licensing. I don't want this to come because what happens in every state is all of a sudden the number of licensed inspectors it doubles or triples from what the number of inspectors who are actually out there working, because everybody gets grandfathered in and they say, well, I'm going to get my license. Even though I'm not going to do any home inspections, it's easy to get my foot in the door. And if I ever want to do it in the future, I'm going to get that license today and hold on to it.
Just
So
do this. Do a great job. Treat people with the utmost respect. Work with integrity. And if you need a license, get the license.
Yep.
You'll be okay.
All right, I got another question here. This sounds like a good one. It says, been debating with other home inspectors online. Question is, do you open Federal Pacific or Zinsco panels or simply not open them and say panel unsafe, recommend replacement? I believe they should be opened and inspected, but advise that they are hazardous. Thanks, Greg with Washington Home Inspection.
Thanks, Greg, for that question. We do not open those panels.
And let's back up. I mean, just
Yeah, why don't you
talk about
explain
this
the background
panel.
of
Yeah.
these panels, right?
Anybody want to go on that one?
Well, I'll go.
I feel like I've done a lot of talking
So
here.
Federal Pacific has a long history of problems. I mean, they've basically been sued out of business. And the reason we don't open those panels is because sometimes those breakers will just fall out of place.
Yeah.
And,
That's right.
And we're not licensed electricians and should not be messing around with that sort of thing. And the exact same thing with the Zinsco panels. They've got an aluminum center bar that heats up and it gets larger and smaller with heat, and then those breakers can fall out of place, correct?
Although, well, we don't have a stance on Zinsco panels. I don't think we've ever
well, the
had an
Sylvania
issue.
ones, right?
That's same thing.
Right.
Sylvania, Zinsco, same thing, same design. We don't have a policy where we don't take those panel covers off. I've never had one of those breakers fall out of the panel on me.
I was at the Mike Casey seminar at Inspection World this year down in New Orleans, and he was talking about that. I'm pretty sure he talked about how all of the breakers slid off the bus bar when he removed a panel cover on a Zinsco panel. I think it was Zinsco.
Okay.
I don't think it was Federal Pacific.
Yeah,
they just all slid down and slid off,
good.
he said. So he
I
doesn't
remember
remove them.
that. I remember asking you one time, I was in a house and said, it was after having this conversation, are we opening these panels? And you said yes.
Yep.
And I did. The question is, I think, okay, so you take it apart. We already know we're recommending a replacement. Then what are we going to do? Tell somebody to fix what's inside of this panel that we're already saying needs to be replaced? It seems redundant to me.
Yeah, and you convinced me to have us kind of change our stance on that. Because, I mean, we opened those panels for a long time. I know I've opened hundreds of them. Yeah. But the problem is when you do open it and a breaker falls out, who's supposed to put it back? And what do we tell the homeowner? Why don't you have power here? Why is the panel cover off? Because you can't even put the panel cover back on. And the answer to that is, well, I opened up the panel and a breaker fell out. And then the natural question back to us as the home inspector, is this a thing? Did you know that this could happen? Oh, yeah, sure. I knew that this is a potential issue with opening up this panel, but I did it anyways because I want to look inside. Well, weren't you going to recommend replacement? Yeah, but I wanted to see anyways. So what is it that I'm really going to see? The only thing that I can possibly think of that I'm going to see inside
Aluminum
of those...
wiring.
Yeah.
You got it, Tess.
Right.
So what do we do if we have a house built?
Oh, aluminum wiring is what I said. Between 1965 and 72. But I'll tell you this, I've seen it in houses in 76 and maybe even 78.
And, you know, it's a good idea for us to recommend further evaluation on those homes, but the really bad alloys were manufactured between 65 and 72. After that, they started changing the alloy, and it wasn't nearly as problematic, but I'm still calling for an electrician to check that stuff out and have an electrician tell the person that this isn't a problem.
So then, to me, this is a tolerance for risk. So if you want to go that one step further, the line in the sand you've crossed, you've like taken on your own risk in this situation.
Yep.
So in a company like ours, it's like, just don't do that because we're going to recommend the same thing.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of that I'd see inside that panel is aluminum wiring.
Yeah.
That's
So
it.
our company policy says that we do not remove covers on Federal Pacific to answer that question. I don't think it says anything about Sylvania or Zinsco, though, in our policy, does it?
No.
Yeah, we just
And we
don't
might,
see them very
we
often.
might talk about it. I mean, we might change that in the future, but not today.
You've been listening to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation, and we will be right back.
Are you in the market to buy a home? Structure Tech Home Inspections is here to help. We've been inspecting the heck out of houses since 1987, and we'd love to help guide you through the process. Our home inspectors at Structure Tech are passionate about education, spending as much time as needed to deliver the most thorough inspection possible. With a 5-star rating on Google and over 1,000 reviews, we're the most highly rated home inspection company in Minnesota. We also offer a full line of related home inspection services, such as radon testing, sewer inspections, and chimney inspections. Whatever home inspection services you need, you can get it with a single phone call, and we'll deliver it with a smile. For pricing and availability, please visit us online at structuretech.com.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation. My name is Bill Ulrich, alongside Tessa Murray and Ruben Saltzman, with special guest Neil Saltzman. And we're just been here on Facebook Live taking some questions, and Ruben's got another one teed up. Let's
I do.
dive right into
All right.
it.
This one comes from Josh Graves. He says, what's the best process or tips for discovering drain leaks with an infrared camera, or use a thermal camera? Example, running hot versus cold water to test, how long it takes for areas to show up on the thermal through the drywall, just general best practices for incorporating a whole house infrared scan. And it sounds like pretty much all of our questions have come from other home inspectors. This podcast is supposed to be kind of more of a consumer and realtor facing podcast, but that's okay. We love home inspectors.
Whoever wants to
everybody
listen.
who listens.
Yeah, so this will be more of a technical podcast, I guess. That's
fine.
okay.
So I'll leave the technical stuff to you guys because I'm not a home inspector right now.
Well, to answer that question, if you have a drain that you have access to, I mean, obviously you can visually inspect that, but we'll use an infrared camera to scan underneath drains that don't have an access, and so we'll fill up the tub or the sink, whatever it is, with water, let it drain.
Which
and
water,
then-
hot or cold?
Good question. In our policy, I think it says cold water, doesn't it? In the shower, it says run cold water.
Yeah, it's cold for a couple of reasons. Number one, we run a ton of water in those tiled showers.
Yeah.
And we would exhaust the water heater tank if we were doing hot. Number two, you're going to see cold faster. If it's leaking
that
and it's
true?
taking a long time,
Okay.
what you end up seeing is the evaporation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're using hot, eventually you're going to exhaust that supply, and eventually it's going to be room temperature water, and it's going to take way longer to show up. 'cause
Unless it's
eventually it
bad,
has
you
to
get a
show up
warm
in-
spot on the ceiling.
If it's really bad, you could get a hot spot
Yeah.
very quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say it
Yeah.
depends. It depends on
Yeah.
the temperature of the house. You need a delta
Yeah.
for a delta spread for IR to be effective.
We're running showers for 30 minutes though, like tiled showers. So we'll let that shower head run, and yeah, so that would empty out hot water.
Okay, so crazy situation. If you walked in a house that's 55 degrees and the water that's coming out of the tap is 55 degrees on cold, you wouldn't see a difference in the temperature.
Well, the house isn't going to be 55 degrees.
Well, I'm making an extreme example.
Sure. And if it is 55 degrees, it's going to be really cold outside. And your groundwater temperature is going to be really low. I mean, like 40 degrees. It's going to be low. You're going to have a good delta.
I just thought of something. You know what? A little tip, what I've learned when I'm testing with an IR camera, maybe you've got a standalone tub and a tiled shower next to each other, cold water in one, hot in the other. You know, just so that you know if there's a leak.
You know
at
which
one.
one's leaking?
Yeah, you know which one's leaking.
Sure.
So I'll do that.
I think we should test this groundwater stuff. I think it's always the same temperature.
No, it definitely gets colder in the winter. I know it does because I've stuck my hand in some of those tubs to pull the stopper, and it was so cold that it hurt.
Okay, we're going to go down a rabbit trail here. So if my well, like my neighbor's well up north at my cabin, is 400 feet deep,
Wow.
there's no way the temperature outside has anything to do with
I'm talking about water in the sustainable urban core, Bill. See what I did there?
Oh, yeah.
that all comes out of the river. So yes, then that
Yeah.
would be colder. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Great
Depends
question.
on where the water's coming from, I guess. Yeah.
All right, but what else on that? I mean, what do we do with our infrared
Yeah.
camera during home inspections? There's a ton of stuff we do. I mean, so
Yeah.
you talked about if it's a tiled shower.
Yep, tiled
we'll run
shower.
that for at least 30 minutes
30
with cold
minutes.
water, and then we
Yep.
take an infrared camera and we scan below it.
Mm-hmm.
What else are we doing with an infrared camera?
Whirlpool tubs too. Scanning below those if you don't
Scan.
have access to all sides. So
Yep.
filling that, letting it run, scanning it.
Finished basements with finished perimeters. Houses with terrible grading, you can go down there in the summertime and just walk around the perimeter with your IR camera. If water's leaking in and if it's saturated the carpet, you might get tipped off to a problem that you can't see otherwise.
It's not a guarantee, but it can be. You can identify it sometimes.
You can identify naughty pets.
Yeah.
So pets, mice.
Naughty pets, yeah.
Mice.
Flat roofs.
Right.
If you've had recent rain or something too. Potential leaks with that.
Sure.
We
What
use
else?
it for our appliances. We actually take photos of ranges, cooktops, refrigerators, freezers. We take pictures with our infrared camera to verify that we've checked the appliances and that they're working.
So it's a real good quick check for us. We also scan electrical panels.
Oh,
Yes.
sure.
Oh, I
That's
forgot
right.
about
Turn
that. Yep.
everything on at the beginning of the
Yep.
inspection, all the lights, exhaust fans, everything that has a big load on the electrical. Then we scan the electric panel and make sure there's no big hot spots.
Yep.
And be careful. If you're going to be doing this, take a class on it so you understand what's hot.
Yep.
Because all AFCI circuit breakers are going to show up warm.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's a problem.
Right.
And when you've got, a 10-degree difference, it'll show up, it'll look hot.
Yeah.
But it's meaningless.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
So the IR cameras deliver data that needs to be kind of interpreted. Yes. So these classes are really good at teaching you how to interpret this data. Just like even surfaces. What's the word that they use?
Emissivity.
Emissivity or I can't
If it's
even
reflective or not, that'll skew something.
Right. So you need to know how to use them to decode what it's telling you to make sure you're not getting a false positive of some sort.
Yep.
How about scanning ceilings and walls?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, scanning ceilings and walls.
Yep. We use it on older homes, checking to see if the walls are insulated. Sometimes we'll see big voids in the insulation, and we might mention that. We usually tell people it's probably going to be cost prohibitive to actually fix this, but we let people know.
Yeah, I mean, it tips you off to those faraway places in the attic that
Yeah.
have a lot of mice trails or something.
And then we use them in attics too. I mean, at least when there's a good temperature difference, it makes finding attic bypasses, attic air leaks so simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that works for our climate where it's cold a lot of the time outside, and we can see those warm spots in the
Where
attic.
was that question from?
I don't know. I'm on a different screen now.
Well, just
sorry.
remember you need a delta for these things to work. So if you don't have one, you have to create one.
And Bill, you keep
What
saying
does delta mean?
Oh, yeah, a delta temperature
Up
spread.
top.
Okay, my bad. So you need about 15 degrees difference between two temperatures for these things to be truly effective.
Yeah, I mean they'll pick up very small differences in temperature, but like inside and outside.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. We need a good difference there. Yep.
High five and fools over there.
Well, we caught you using a term that maybe you didn't define. You're so good at that. We're just giving you our time because you're so
I
good
just
at
was
that.
using
good
a
at-
letter from an ancient alphabet.
Yeah. Delta is different.
Delta T. What is that?
All right. I got another question here. This one's actually a homeowner here. Roger says, have a house that has, and Pops will get you in on this one maybe.
Okay.
This might be a good one for you. Have a house that has about a 2-inch sag in the middle of the dining room floor. I wish to remove some walls beneath it as well. What's it take to put in a cross beam and raise those sagging joists and support the cross beam? And how many beers job is that?
Beer's job.
Oh boy.
A lot of beer. Boy, it's a big project. Huge.
How big is the house? Does he give any
He doesn't
definitions?
say. But just in terms of putting the support beam in, you have to carry that load all the way down. So wherever you're doing it, if it's the first floor, you carry say it's 2 posts on either side of that beam, you carry those posts down to the lowest level, then you have to transfer that load down into the basement, and if it's a spot that doesn't have support, you're going to have to break up the floor, pour a footing, and carry continuous support all the way down to that. So it's a big project.
How big does
But
that?
it can be done for
Lifetime
sure.
supply of beer then?
A lot of beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a keg.
So doing those load calcs,
We don't do that, and I would definitely defer that to an engineer.
you want a stamp for that and
I
tell you how
would-
to do it.
I would.
And then
Yeah.
you could hire the uncle and bring the beer.
As long as they know what they're doing, it's definitely doable, but big project.
Yeah, and my advice would be if you want to learn more about this and see how some of this stuff is done, go to the Journal of Light Construction, JLC. I don't remember what their website is, but you Google Journal of Light Construction, do a search on their site about structural repairs, and I mean, it seems like just about every month in their magazine, they've got a detailed article showing how somebody did a repair, a structural repair on an old home like this, and they document the whole thing. Like, here's what it looked like in the beginning, here's all the work we had to do, it took us this many months. And I mean, it's like you said, Pops, these are super involved projects. It's not a weekend type of deal. This is you're finding somewhere else to live almost for many months.
But it's not a ton of money to get a good understanding of what needs to be completed. Like an engineer to come out and put that together, it's less than $1,000 probably, right?
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can get some pretty good direction for a pretty good price.
Yeah.
Do we have more questions?
Well, I think we're about out of time.
Can we
Well,
squeeze
come on,
one
let's
more
do
good
one more question. Come on, please.
All right. No, we don't have any more good questions. I'm sorry. Hold on. Wait a minute. Okay, I have one more. Sorry. And this one I skipped over. This was the first one I looked at, and I just thought this is such a tough one. I don't even know how we're going to answer this, but I'll let you guys give it a shot. Maybe you guys know. Question is, I have a well at my house, and recently the kitchen faucet has sputtered and some brown water sprayed out. Then it goes clear and normal again. So we got a well, get some occasional brown water, and he said it's similar to what the city would do when they do hydrant flushing. Does something need to be cleaned, replaced, or what should I watch out for? And he also said the faucet was professionally installed less than 3 years ago. I got back to him. I said, hey, Mike, how old's your house? And do you have galvanized water pipes? Because, of
Yeah.
course, that's my first thought.
Yeah.
He said, my house is built in 1990.
Oh.
Okay, I'm stumped.
Well,
That
yeah, but
is
a
weird.
lot of
the
these
water
wells.
How
Yeah,
about
it could be the
heater?
water heater. Maybe it's rust from the tank if water was sitting in the water heater for a long time. But
That's-
you,
Okay,
you-
so maybe if it
1990,
only
that's
happens with
30 years
hot,
old.
Yeah.
but then why would
Yeah.
it only be one fixture?
that doesn't make any sense. I don't
So
know.
if it's a fixture, then it feels like there's something to do with the fixture.
You know what? I'm going to say whenever this faucet was professionally replaced, someone stuck a little section of galvanized piping inside the wall somewhere or to transition. We've seen it sometimes. I mean, we'll transition from packs and they'll have a couple of random
Yeah.
galvanized fittings and then they'll transition to something else. That's the
Did
only
they?
thing I can
guess the
think
question
of.
to ask would be: did they have that problem before the faucet was installed?
I don't know why they would mention the faucet if they didn't. If they did, then I think
Well, it
it
feels
wouldn't
like the
even matter.
faucet replaced was maybe let's replace that and see if it fixes the problem.
Maybe so.
But
Maybe
I mean,
so.
some of these wells can get kind of some chunky stuff coming up from the bottom.
Yeah. So,
So,
if it's everywhere, then it's either the well or possibly
Or the
water
water
heater.
heater.
Yeah, or maybe that's the fixture that's nearest the well or some. Who knows? It could. That's an
Yeah,
unusual.
so we
one.
don't have a
don't
great answer. It's kind of why I was skipping this
Stumped.
one because I don't know what we could tell this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We appreciate the question. Those
Sorry,
are kinda
Mike.
fun.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
asking. Sorry we don't have a better answer for
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, so are we going to put a wrap on this?
you. Yeah, we better. We're at time.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hey, I just have
And watching.
one shout out to a friend of ours down in Dallas, Texas. Her name is Angela. And Angela had to put her horse down today, which is really, really sad. And we just
Oh.
wanted to tell Blake and Angela, we're thinking about you. They're with super inspectors down south, and they're great people. And I feel really bad that she got such bad news on a good day. Thanks, everybody. You're listening to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation, and we will catch up with you next time.
For more information on how we can provide you with the right information about your home before you buy or sell, contact us at structuretech.com.